The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Here from the Temple of Silence in Finland. It's kind of a rainy morning, and we're getting ready for some Blue Rose events that are happening, and for the Sirius Festival, the Leo full moon, which is coming up. Just about a week from now. So we're working on some abstruse material, and let's see where it takes us in the science of triangles section of esoteric astrology. And of course, this takes us into the realm of cosmology and the kinds of triangles that are lying behind the normal kinds of triangles we consider, such as between ourselves and also within our etheric system and basically within the microcosm. We consider those triangles first, but behind them are all the great triangles, so many of which we know absolutely nothing about. But DK gives us a chance to do a little speculating about them. So we will do our best under the circumstances. You'll see what I mean in a little while. Just want to say good morning, then, or from our angle anyway, to Annette and Antoinette and Ariel and Diane and Frederick and Karen, Carrie, Martha, Minnie, Nienke, Pura, Stephen, Tiu, Vera, Zenaidi, and Veronica, and Joe is here with me, helping keep things together. So let's have just a little bit of an alignment. And then I'll get into the text, and you can take notes as we go along. Now, some of what we're going to deal with is fairly speculative because DK seems to be using the element of blinding. In other words, for those who have eyes to see, we can see it, okay, if we can see it. And otherwise, we have to wait until more information is given, which we can do, of course. After all, the Aquarian age is young and much will be revealed. And even before the Aquarian age begins, technically in the year 2117, that's what he gave us as the beginning. And we're not exactly sure when during that time, but I guess the vernal equinox is aligning with the, I'm so sorry, with the 30th degree of the constellation Aquarius. Of course, some of them are, bigger and some of them are smaller, but somehow conventionally at least 30 degrees exists for each of them. And that alignment with the 30th degree comes in the year 2117. That was in a letter somehow that turned up to Roberto Assagioli, the disciple known as FCD. And one of the amazing things about that, at least from my perspective, is that it's also the year in which, again, you have the Venus transit across the face of the sun. And we know how important Venus is in relation to our planet. It's kind of the alter ego or the prototype or what we are meant to become. And really, by this time, we should have been that way, but things happened on the moon chain, as they say, and we on Earth are rather far behind. Nevertheless, in that year, 2117, when Venus crosses the face of the sun, visibly so, that will be technically the beginning of the Aquarian age, and we will have fought our way through the rest of the 21st century here, in which the sixth ray and the sign or constellation Pisces are fading out. DK pretty well sees them as faded out by the time we reach the end of this century, but from another perspective, until the year 2125, the sixth ray in its present cycle is not yet faded out. I have tried to explain that there are much bigger cycles, and we're also very much engaged in a huge sixth ray cycle, which is lasting, I guess, remaining some 21,000 years. And it's in an even bigger fourth ray cycle, which is operating for about 40,000 or 44,000 years. So let's say that when the masters reach that point where they can have what's called all knowledge, they really know something. They know something about these great cycles, and they can apply their abilities in the best way possible according to the best timing. Now, if we could just do that in our own little lives just a little bit, we'd be okay. Okay. So let's just have, let's just have a little focus together. And we are coming together in our consciousness wherever we may be in time and space. The consciousness is here. In some ways, there's only here. And what we want to do is think together under the influence of the soul. It's called the mind held steady in the light. And occasionally, as possible, receive the impress of the higher mind and even, and that is the abstract mind, and even an intuition now and then, about which nothing personal applies. A true intuition has the bigger picture in mind, and we certainly are dealing with big picture factors at this time. So here we are, little projections of the one life. We are monads in extension. We're very limited, but more and more we are capable of embracing some of the larger archetypal structures and living according to them. And that would mean we can help to present the divine plan at the right time to our little globe, in our little chain, in this little earth scheme, all as part of our long way to go, but it'll be very interesting. Every universe is unique and very interesting. So just one little ohm here on the note G, which is a blue note. All right, so now we get into our studies, and I know more people join us as we go along here, but I welcome the group by name in the very beginning. So, but welcome to whomever comes, and thank you for being here. Now, when I looked at this section, I said, oh my goodness, this is pretty abstruse. But what I'll do is, for the sake of bridging, I will read the paragraph we ended with and try to get that truth anchored in our nature, and then go on to our 16th program here. So it says, speaking technically, perception and response, or the activity of the perceiving, observing consciousness, carried on through the medium of the mechanism of response, is dependent upon the condition or aliveness of the centers or their quiescence. We know the story that in the beginning, the centers, like the planets, are quite quiescent. And even when you look into our solar system now, relative to what they will be, the great triangle of synthesizing planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn, are as the triangle quite quiescent, even though they are very influential. They represent, well, Saturn is quite active, of course, because it connects with the previous solar system, and it has so much third ray in it as the foundation of everything that's going on in our second ray solar system now. But not Neptune and not Uranus. And those are planetary schemes about which we don't know much. Let's see if I can get over here without, yeah, as you see, here is a picture of our solar system with certain of the planetary schemes and all those triangles. If you really look at it, wow, in the Saturn, in this greater Saturn scheme, there are so many interlocking triangles, but not so many, really rather one involving Uranus and Neptune coming down to the heart of Saturn. That's a major, major triangle of the synthesizing planets, and it represents in our system what the monad chooses. It's going to operate primarily through the head, the heart, or the throat. Those are going to be the monadic anchors that are chosen at a particular time for each one of us. And it's obvious that Uranus with its first ray monad represents the head. Neptune with its second ray monad represents the heart in this case, and Saturn with its third ray monad represents the throat center of the solar logos, but also within our own system. And, you know, before long, the triangular astrology or triangulating astrology of the chakras will emerge, and we will understand how the various positions and angles and all those sort of things in our astrological chart, and we do have many astrological charts, tell us something about the condition of our chakra system and maybe about its development. You know, it's always, let's put it like this. We have a form of interaction which has certain energy potentials. They exist at the time when people are born, and many people are born at a similar time. But how far we have taken our form in its development over millions of years is very variable with each person, each individual. So this great energy configuration, which is available at the time that many people are born at a more or less similar time, will be differently appropriated by the different individuals depending upon how far their form has developed. So I hope we get that principle in mind. The astrological configuration is kind of an archetype. It shows you availability, but it doesn't tell you how far each form is developed. So that's something to definitely consider. Anyway, as you see, everything about Uranus and Neptune is conventionalized. There's no geometry there. You look down here at some of the earlier unfolding planets, there's all kinds of geometry, and they are different from each other in various ways that only a close examination will reveal. I think somehow, and maybe in my written commentaries on the treatise on cosmic fire, when I got to these charts, I did elaborate them. And that would be, something that might be worth looking into. And here, this is all done 100 years ago. You can understand the way they had to draw all of this out. But DK has embedded a lot of mysteries about the science of triangles in the diagrams that he has offered, none of which is casual. Some are interior triangles or kites, and some are squares. So you notice that the Venus grouping here, the Venus scheme, is not based on the square. The Mercury scheme right here is not based on the square. Others are based on the square, but the internal triangle, in this particular case, is touching none of the four inferior chains. But here, there is a touch going on. And let's see if there's any place else. That probably is the only place where a touch is going on in the Jupiter scheme. So let's just say if we knew more and we could really, really analyze these things with precision, we might find many of our questions answered. The God of our solar system and gods beyond that are organizing their sphere of influence according to the principle of triangles. And we are organized as well according to the principle of triangles. So we just have to be very sharp, very astute in seeing how this triangulating is going on. And of course, we can begin right here with our own interactions and build accordingly. And if we do that, we're going to be aligning with the will of the deity. Now, why do I say that? Because of the following. If I can just get there. Okay. Yeah, here it is. All of this relates to this chart on the creative hierarchies. And the symbol for the atmic plane is the triangle. And it's the force of mind, Jnana Shakti. And it's ruled by Saturn and the color green, and the constellation associated with it is Libra. And Libra, if you look into the sky, it is in the form of a triangle, and actually so is Capricorn. But Libra is a major third ray distributor. Now, when it comes to looking closely at what's going on the atmic plane, we understand that it is the place where impression about the divine plan is registered and the plan is formed. So let's just say the monadic level above it is the realm of purpose, and the Libran realm on the atmic plane is the realm of the divine plan. So right away, the third ray is hitting the power to plan, the urge to formulate a plan. And if we can work with triangles, we are going to become aware of the divine will as it operates through the divine plan. And that is going to be the special gift of the atmic plane. Well, there's a lot of abstruse things going on here. And when I say abstruse, I mean, sort of difficult to ascertain fully. We're given hints and we can try to work with them, okay? And maybe full certainty will not come to us immediately. Anyway, according to the aliveness of the centers in our form, so will be our perceptions. If we're very, very dull, there's not much aliveness in our centers, and that's the way it was in the early days. Maybe only certain of the lower centers were alive, and the rest he describes as sort of saucer-like and not much movement and just sort of there, you know. But later things speed up and we get very responsive. So the aliveness of the centers or their quiescence. Now, obviously, in our spiritual training, we want to bring into a greater state of livingness the various chakras in our system. The lower chakras are quite alive, and some of them are fading out of the kind of intense activity that they once had. And the higher chakras are fading in, and thus it will be in our solar system and in the triangles that are formed thereby. The higher planets, the synthesizing planets, will be becoming very alive, just the way in a man, a human being, the head center and the heart center are going to become increasingly alive as we progress. So he says, this is true of a man galvanized into activity through his 7 centers, and of course we have many more, but we're talking about major ones, of a planetary logos functioning through 7 planetary centers, and we're talking about the ones that are probably sacred planets, and we're talking about the spirits before the throne in that poetic language that we find in the Bible, or of a solar logos functioning through still greater centers of vibratory activity, or still greater lives functioning through the aggregate of solar systems. Now, I pointed out that we should go to page 293 of a treatise on cosmic fire. This is turning out to be a rather lengthy review. Please forgive me, but it's interesting stuff. And 293 gives us a really important chart about great beings and their chakra systems, and probably the kinds of triangles between them. So always go back to this chart, which basically takes us all the way from a human being up to what's called the one about whom naught may be said, or at least the first of them, who has constellations for chakras. So this is a very important chart, and we see, you know, a heavenly man has chains for his chakras. That's a planetary logos. Another name for planetary logos is a heavenly man. A solar logos has planetary schemes. A cosmic logos has solar systems like our own. Our solar system is a heart center. And this unknown logos that we begin to call the one about whom naught may be said, that has constellations. Now, I'll tell you what, I just got this feeling, maybe we can call it telepathy, but I promised, you know, I always send out the link to my wife, which I better do, you know. Okay, so let's see, and I usually do, and this is the link for Science of Triangles, number 16. I better do that, and there we go. All right. Now, let's see a little bit more. Upon this activity and its understanding depends the whole science of astrology, which is basically a third ray science. Now, DK, he brings a lot of the second ray into it because it reveals the ray of the divine pattern, and it's the astrology of consciousness, which is esoteric astrology. Now, the normal astrology is kind of having us deal with the world of form and objectivity. Okay, so here, upon this activity of the different centers awakening, and look, planetary logoi are differently alive. Solar logoi are variously alive and responsive. Let's just say we don't live in a sacred solar system yet compared to the solar system of Sirius, and even cosmic logoi and on, variously alive and have reached certain activity within their own nature, which tells about their aliveness. So upon this activity of coming alive is the entire science of astrology based. And then he tells us, in this statement, I give you a clue which may someday revolutionize the present approach to astrology. I guess it's kind of inevitable that when we get into the higher idea of the science of triangles, we cannot escape astrology and cosmology. Now, this next section is fairly speculative, and it all depends whether DK is dealing with things in order or not. The 12 signs of the zodiac fall into two groups of signs, and their related synthesis has much to do with the science of triangles. Now, what are these signs? 7 signs related to the unfoldment of planetary consciousness upon Earth, and only incidentally involving the fourth creative hierarchy, the human hierarchy. Now, you know, here we are. This is here the fourth creative hierarchy, and as monads, we have a special function upon the Buddhic plane. So the unfoldment of each and all of us as monads is a very Buddhic process and has a lot to do with Mercury and the fourth ray and all that kind of thing. But he says these signs of the zodiac, they may affect us, but not directly. They are incidental. 5 signs, the other 5, it's always 7 and 5. Even if you look at a piano, you know, you look at a piano and you find that the way we've divided our scale is basically 7 white notes and 5 black notes. So we have that 7-5 division right there, you know, in a major instrument which we use. And sometimes there's a question of what is sacred. Well, in general, I want to say this, that the number 5 is a Brahmic number and relates to the previous solar system. The number 7 is a number relating to our present solar system, which is a second ray system. So maybe I've said it before, but 5 is Brahma, 7 is Vishnu, and 9, which is the coming solar system trillions of years ahead, if the Brahmanic chronology is to be believed, that's the Shiva number, because our next solar system is going to be Shiva. And even right there, you have a big triangle, don't you? There are 3 major solar systems, and we are in the transitional or second major solar system. When you put all of those together and you kind of use the effect of eternity, you might say, that the past, present, and future all come together, you have the 7th and final solar system in the unfoldment of our solar logos at this time. So 5 signs are related to the unfoldment in time and space, which is an important qualifier, of the human hierarchy. And these 5 signs are of major conditioning importance and may be enumerated as follows. Now, maybe these are in order. It's hard to say, and maybe not. They certainly are in order in terms of the signs, but are they in order in terms of the root races? Now, some of you have studied the secret doctrine, and you know you're getting into it, and I strongly recommend you work with Francis Donald and the group that has come to his webinar on the secret doctrine. Because as HPB said, this is a book that has information which is available in no other source. Excuse me, at least in the Western world. So here are the 5 conditioning signs. Now, we might say that the first incarnation of the human race occurred in the sign Cancer. And that is called, the root race involved there is called the Adamic root race. Now, whether we can go on technically here and say that each one of these signs is related to the succeeding root race or not, well, will depend on many things. The next sign is Leo, and of course these are foundational. Some systems of astrology, which are largely Kabbalistic, simply begin with Cancer and Leo as the kind of originating points. But every one of these root races is described in the Secret Doctrine and in other commentaries on it. And the first 2 or 2.5 root races are not even intelligent. And we've been through this, right? They don't even have the self-consciousness that occurred in another root race. So the next one is the Hyperborean. It takes place around the poles. It's the land of the eternal sun. And in many forms of mythology, you read about the land of eternal light. Maybe we still have in the far north some precipitation of this Hyperborean time. The next sign, at least in order, is Scorpio, and it would fit with the Lemurian root race. And, let's just say individualization, at least on our Earth chain, occurs somewhere in the middle part of this long, long Lemurian root race. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that all of us have been through this process on this planet. Maybe some similar process occurred on the moon chain, or even, who knows, nothing we can track in the previous solar system, as some of us may be what's called the nomads. The monads who are the nomads wandering on the bridge that Saturn built between the previous solar system and the present one. And I have a feeling from some things I've read that the vestiges, the remains of the previous solar system are kind of hanging around in our local cosmic space and provide what we might call a cosmic moon, which has as much a deleterious effect upon the general solar system as the decaying moon has upon our Earth. But suffice it to say, if there was a battle between the animal nature and the emerging human nature, we could understand Scorpio as being involved in the Lemurian phase. Now, sometimes when I look at the next two, I wonder if they shouldn't be reversed. I don't know for sure, okay? But the Atlantean root race, the sign Capricorn is significant because it is the sign of initiation, and that's when the initiation of human beings began, at least in earnest, and some of the higher initiations. There was something going on in Lemuria involving the connection between the etheric body and the dense physical, but the possibility of greater initiations emerged in Atlantis, okay? Atlantis is what I'm talking about here. However, Capricorn is also a sign which is ruled in some ways by Venus and the fifth ray. Now, that's very good for initiation, but it correlates very well with the whole idea of the Aryan root race. And Pisces, being an extremely psychic sign, a water sign, correlates well with the Atlantean emotional tendency. So I'm really not sure whether these last two should be reversed or not, and whether perhaps Leo and Scorpio should be reversed or not, because individualization, which is Leonian, took place in Lemurian times. And then, these early creatures were really huge. And if we individualized or became man out of animal man in this particular chain, then we went through that, and now maybe disciples have a tendency to be more from the moon chain at this time because they've been through a lot of experience. But maybe some people have the sense that they are part of Earth Chain humanity. So anyway, DK gives the 5 earliest root races, and 2 more are to come, and the first 2.5 are not even individualized or self-conscious, and it's all related here to the science of triangles. And we, there's this. I once I had a habit of going out for hours and hours listening to esoteric astrology or a treatise on cosmic fire. And in those days, you carried some little machine. They called it a Walkman or something like that. And I listened to the books over and over again. And I may have told you this, but I reached the point where I made triangles. Excuse me. I made triangles between all of the signs of the zodiac, something like this: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Aries, Taurus, Leo, Aries, Taurus, Virgo, etc., etc. And I took in every possible triangle within the signs of the zodiac and tried to interpret them and tried to see what they would be like as triangles in revolution when one or other of the 3 signs were more important. And I did this also for the planets. And then my poor daughter had to transcribe all this from tapes, which she did. And somewhere is this transcription of all this stuff. And I have to work it into some astrological books. But it's very interesting to think in triangular terms about everything going on around us. Now, all of these triangles, they do exist. However, some of them are more important to us than others, and it gets to be so diverse that the best thing to do is to concentrate on the ones that are the most relevant, okay? Otherwise, we're just going to be there all day. It'll be an academic exercise and not really something that we can apply. Okay, so anyway, these 5 signs are directly related to man, and I can interpret them in a different way. For instance, with Cancer, you take incarnation. With Leo, you individualize and become a conscious self. With Scorpio, you realize the duality of your nature. The pairs of opposites exist, and the battle is on between the higher of the pairs of opposites and the lower. And many of us are engaged in this battle right now. See, we have a triangle here. It's called monad, soul, and personality. What is winning? What's in the ascendant? Consider that for a moment to be a triangle in revolution. So what's in the most powerful position? Well, wouldn't you say that for so many millions of years, what we call the elemental nature or personality has been in the dominant position? But for some of us now, like students of Master Decay, the triangle is in revolution, and the soul nature is coming to the highest position, and the personality nature is subsiding. Now, for still others, having gone through 2nd, 3rd, 4th initiation, the monad is now revolving and taking the highest position in that particular triangle. So all of this is according to the law of mutation. It's a very Geminian kind of thing. Everything is in constant movement, changing relationship, but the whole purpose is to approximate the archetype in heaven on the monadic and logoic planes. So we are in motion, and all of us, quite simply, are trying to learn how to live as souls. All right? Okay, so that gives you an idea, and Scorpio is the big battle. Capricorn leads us into the realm of initiation, especially the first 5, from the birth of the Christ in the heart all the way up to mastership. And Pisces can mean the 5th initiation. It can also mean the return to the Father's home. I leave the Father's home and turning back I save, and re-becoming the monad and entering into condition of release from that big journey that we have taken down through the lower planes. So in that sense, these signs are in order. Now, the remaining signs of the zodiac are here, and there's a lot to say about all of them. And I trust that you have read your esoteric astrology or reread it. It's not something you can just read once. You've got to really concentrate on that. And then all of this science of energies will begin to find its way. Now, DK said the most occult, esoteric book I have written is Esoteric Astrology, because it deals entirely with energies. Now and he's even putting it ahead of Cosmic Fire, which we know is an amazing book written for initiates primarily, but we all can get something out of it. But this book, Astrology, is so deep because the coming science of energies he begins to lay that out, and we can begin to interpret everything that goes on around us and within us in terms of energy and force. And that is truly the occult way of operating. Okay, so the 5 signs we've just been through, which are Cancer, Leo, what is it? Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces. These 5 signs are related in the planetary sense. Notice how careful he is here, because they mean something else in maybe in a different context related to other constellations. But in the planetary sense, our planet, to the 5 great races, of which our present race, the 5th. So he takes you right back to the secret doctrine and the Adamic race and the Hyperborean race, and only then the Lemurian race. So many of us are inclined to think of Lemuria as the first root race. Well, it's the first self-conscious root race, and that was in the middle, maybe 18.5 million years ago. These 5 races, oh, it's really going to rain here now. We really need it here too. This has been an extremely, maybe you've heard the climate is changing. Anyway, great heat all over certain areas of the world, and very dangerous. And the plants are dying, the trees are dying. We're in for a big change here. And when the sky opens up like this and it really rains, we're very grateful. Okay, these 5 races, under the influence of the 5 signs, now this is interesting, produce the externalizations which are called the 5 continents: Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, and America. Now, we're going to say that, whoa, that's not it, is it? I have a way of well, that was not correct. Okay, so anyway, these are the 5 continents at the moment, but let's just say, but other continents will emerge. Now, maybe some of you have read the Rosicrucian Cosmoconception. And there it talks about the emergence in the Pacific Ocean of a great continent that, maybe for want of better terms, is called Pacifica. And you notice also that South America is not listed, but there's going to be a very, very important civilization during the 6th root race emerging in South America, with Brazil being an extremely important center there, with its 4th ray soul and its 2nd ray personality, which fits so well with the 6th root race. So we do not have, like glands, these 5 continents are to the planetary life what 5 major, he doesn't say the 5, what 5 major endocrine glands are to the human being. So it's almost as if we don't have, as if we do not have a thymus gland and a pineal gland. I mean, we have, but they are not in the type of expression as they will be later. Just like, for all of us, maybe our thymus gland is active in our early childhood, and you get all these ideas about the kingdom of heaven, and the little ones are the residents of the kingdom of heaven, and as if a little child should lead them and all that. That's a symbolic language, really. That symbolic language means that the initiates of the first and second degree will be leading humanity at a certain point. But let's just say the thymus gland returns on an entirely different level of expression later in our development, and probably at the sixth stage of our development, it returns. And then, as far as the pineal gland in the center of the head, it has many regulatory functions. But in terms of it being the window to the soul and really opening up the inner worlds, that will probably come for the majority during the seventh root race. So anyway, we have the continents considered as endocrine glands, and the continents which have emerged so far as different ones. Now, which are which? Maybe maybe Australia. I mean, this is speculation here. All right, Australia may be the base of the spine center. It was a very important center in Lemuria. Africa, the sacral center. Asia, the solar plexus center. America, the throat center. Europe, the Ajna center, and South America and Pacifica ahead. Everything is being worked out on a planetary scale, the same kind of thing that's being worked out in our own system. And so what we have to be able to do is analogize, and because it's the great key to interpreting the different levels of cosmos. Now, to develop that facility for analogy, I used to think I was pretty good at analogy, and it just stuck in my mind. I'll never forget now that vodka is made out of potatoes. I took this test on analogy, and I just didn't know that vodka was made out of potatoes. And that was the one thing I got wrong on it. And I thought that, and naturally now I can never forget it. But let's develop through the use of the fourth ray and the second ray this facility with analogy and filling in the blanks on the different levels. Okay, so these are speculations. As I look at the continents, I think we have a lot. I think they're fairly intelligent, or at least reasonable, with Australia. Right down there. It's and maybe there will be a revival in Australia, because the base of the spine is so foundational in the beginning, but later it is the source of the will energy and has to send that energy right up to the top of the head. So maybe there'll be a relationship between whatever Australia means and this continent called Pacifica. At least that's what they called it then. The sacral center in Africa makes a lot of sense. As far as Asia with the solar plexus, there's a strong devotional aspect there, but there's also much more. America is involved with its major center, which is New York, with its communications center as a kind of, it's an intelligent communication spreading center. Europe, of course, is the home of the fifth root race, and very much the focus. And there's the Ajna Center with its fifth ray. And then we have the other issues. What about heart? What about the head? Reawakening those. Now, look, always the heart is awake, always. Otherwise, we die, So that center has a minimum function. And always the head is awake. But there are different levels of awakening these glands, these planetary glands. And we just have to know how that works out in us and analogize to the planet. Now, just a little more, and then I've talked enough, and then we can get into thoughts that you may have as we go along. Now, look, I know I'm asking you and myself to think in larger terms. Excuse me. And the question might be, well, what about me? What about me? But who are we anyway? We seem to have a limited identity, but will the time come when we can say, I am the group, I am the planet, I am the solar system, and beyond and beyond and beyond, until we finally admit to ourselves that we are the one life in all of cosmos. Many veils have to be lifted before that is realized, and probably even great logoi to whom we look up and say, oh, how could I ever be like that? They don't even have it yet. They don't really have it. I mean, if you think about what the God of this whole universe could possibly be, you realize that our solar logoi are like little atoms or little crystals or something compared to that huge being. So we have to realize that, and we're on our way. All right. All these appearances, expressions of qualities, and material evidences of life. See, now we're talking about the life, quality, and appearance. That's the Trinity, that's the triangle found in Esoteric Psychology number 1. All these appearances, expressions of quality, life quality experience, right? Life quality and, what's the last one? Anyway, I think we went to bed at 4 o'clock last night, and it's not all working yet. Okay. Life quality and appearance. That's it. Okay. So we're talking about the appearance level here, the third aspect, the third ray part. And material evidences of life are the symbols or outer and visible signs of inner and spiritual realities or life, whatever you may mean by that term. And, really, DK tells us, look, you don't know anything about the will at all. And when it comes to life, just forget it, because life is even beyond the will. Somehow in the triangle of life, quality, and appearance, or will, let's just say, it's more like this. It's like will, quality, and appearance is the central point called life, which is pure being. Two of them are in a similar category, quality and appearance, but life is absolutely fundamental to any type of perception whatsoever. But he defines it in a certain way. For our purposes, that's not the ultimate purpose. For our purpose, we could define life as the energy emanating from certain great lives. So right there, we're into kind of a, what are we saying? We're using the word to define the word. The energy emanating from certain great lives who stand behind our solar system as its life and source, much as the monad stands behind the appearance of man upon the physical plane, or of the soul upon its own level. Now, basically, what is this going to be? Then he's going to say the energy of life is coming from the 3 great constellations. He'll say the Great Bear, Sirius, and the Pleiades. Although if you look a little deeper, you'll find out that Sirius, whose festival is coming up, let us celebrate. Sirius is a blind for the little bear. So you've got 2 bears and the Pleiades, 21 altogether, 21 major stars, many more stars, but 21 major stars. Take the whole thing, and you've got the mystical, magical number 22. So behind everything that's going on here with us is the great source of our livingness. Now, philosophically, we can't say that any being is life per se. Let's just say the different kinds of beings have a different intensity of being able to distribute the energy of life or the intensity of being. But being is being is being, and there's just finally nothing else. It's indivisible, it's homogeneous, it is the same everywhere for all time. So, no entity is being itself. It's an example of the precipitation of being. So, anyway, what we have here is for our purposes, certain great lives stand behind our solar system and our planet, and these are the three great constellations with these immense intelligences and beings um, ensouling them. Great Bear, first ray, Little Bear, second ray, Pleiades, especially the seven sisters, uh, the third ray. Man, it might be stated, is the expression of seven principles and of the life expression or activity of five planes. Now, let's just say five planes is from Atma on down. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, the astral, the physical. But the seven principles are the seven monadic circles on the monadic plane. And then, something we've been saying before, in this 7 plus 5 is to be found the clue to the mystery of the 7 and the 5 zodiacal constellations. Now, I'm not recommending we try to get into solving that mystery at this time. Just to acknowledge that it exists is plenty. And let's see. Well, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Now we're going to be getting into this wonderful chart. And here we have, let's see, what do we have here? I think Joe made something for us here in this science of, whoops, well, it's somewhere here. I had it just a minute ago. And let me see if I can find it again. It's a good one. And if I go to open, science of triangles, oh, let's try that one. No, that's not it. Anyway, she made a beautiful chart, and I'm going to find it. And it's based upon this particular, no, it's not based on that one. It's based on 427, page 427. So I had it just a minute ago, and I don't know what happened to it. Okay, I wonder if this is it. Let's go to the top. Here it is. So we're going to get into this next time, which is a couple of weeks away. We're going to get into this particular chart, which is 6 down and 3 across. And it's just filled with triangles. For instance, here's how you can go. Great Bear, Sirius, Pleiades, a triangle. Great Bear, Leo, Saturn, a triangle. Leo, Saturn, Shambhala, a triangle. Saturn, Shambhala, Planetary Head Center, a triangle, and so forth. Many, many triangles are concealed in this particular chart, and we want to know how these energies descend into our own system and provide faculties that we use all the time, such as personal will, personal desire, and personal creativity. So from the very highest heights of the Great Bear, the cosmic Manu, as Stephen Pugh has called it, the cosmic Manu, all the way down to the base of the spine center, where we find the will energy, we have this huge expanse, and thus it is for the second ray, and thus it is for the third ray. So the next time we get together on this, that's what we'll be doing. And what I'm going to do here is I'll say that this is the end of Science of Triangles number 16. Oh, and I don't even know. Okay, we're on page 426. Okay, and today is the 20th of July. We're just about to go into the sign Leo. Okay. And here we have the beginning of, okay, Science of Triangles, and really it's academic reading, AR, academic reading. And beginning of Science of Triangles, number 17, and page 427. Hi, Joe, are you there? Okay, and it'll be on the 27th of July 18. And let me just check on that if it's true. Yeah, it is true.
I just unmuted Tuya, and now she's self-muted. She wanted you to know she.
Okay. Well, okay. No, now we're going to open things up, and everybody, excuse me, will have the chance to speak. And Tuya and I will do our best, of course, to be present. Sometimes we are traveling, and if our travels fall on a day that we're supposed to have some presentations, we might have to call and let everybody know we can't do it. Also, I just want to let you know that different things come up with computer networks. And we've had some reports lately that some of our music broadcasts are breaking. We don't know why. I think, it's something to do with bandwidth and some changes that have happened with our server. And we have a professional computer man staying here with us these couple of days. And we're doing our very best to bring everything back to continuity. Because sometimes when you have a big piece of music, it just won't fit in what we're transmitting. And sometimes people are experiencing dropouts and cutouts that are lasting even, I don't know, someone said this thing lasted eight minutes. But the thing is that we have to, I just learned this yesterday, you have to go into your modem and you have to get rid of the history every month. Otherwise, you're going to be blocked. And if the computer is clogged, you're going to be blocked. The history can block you. And if you don't have sufficient download speed, you're going to be blocked. And even though here, as I am transmitting the stream, I've got that red button. It's on all the time. It's not flickering. It's steady, it's steady, it's steady, but people out there are receiving cuts. So Tui and I and our computer expert here are going to do the best we can to overcome this problem, because there's a lot of beautiful music that's being transmitted and it's appropriate, and we don't want that to continue for you. We know how frustrating that can be, but every once in a while something comes up in relation to the server and to the network, even though it seems perfectly fine right here, and in different countries, no problem, but in other countries, problem. And we'll do our best to solve that. All right. So I know I've yacked on here for quite a while, but I do want to, I see hands up, but I want to give Tuya the chance to, oh, there you are. Okay, dear. Hi. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, good morning to everybody. No, just continue.
Okay.
I don't have anything at the moment. I was one thing I was saying that I have done those charts, which you were showing, which are in vector. So when you make them grow bigger, it is keeping the proportion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And you got some very beautiful charts here also that you've been working on, and we're going to figure out how we what we do about making these kinds of things available, distribution on this. Look, everything here belongs to the Tibetan, no question about it. I mean, none of us claim that we're doing anything but piggybacking off of what the Tibetan has given us, but we try to do it in different ways that make things
Michael,
as visible as possible. Yeah, dear, go ahead.
You can send those. You can send those colored ones, which you already have. But everybody just have to know that they might have some mistakes, minor mistakes. But anyway, they can go already.
Okay, well then I'll talk to Joe about how we do that, and then some of you will have the pleasure of being able to work with them. You know, Tui and I consulted quite a bit here, but boy, there's a lot. And this is probably the biggest chart that the Tibetan has offered in terms of the cosmic reach. And yet it's just a drop in the bucket, you know. All of the colors are significant. All of the dotted lines, the centers of triangles, all kinds of things are significant here. And sometimes we just have to work on them so we can understand deeply. And notice how many triangles there are, may I say. Okay. And they're not triangles for nothing. They could be circles, but they are triangles. So we'll try to get to the significance of those things. Yeah, go ahead, dear. Yep.
Yes, that's why everybody has to compare these charts with the Tibetan, because I was adding something like the dots, they are not in Tibetan's charts.
But they're implied. They're implied.
The points in the middle.
Yeah, there's always a point in the middle of every triangle. There's always a point in the middle. Just the way, you know, Sanat Kumara is the point in the center of the three Buddhas of activity. Pure being is the heart of every triangle. And that's where the tetrahedron becomes very important, because the tetrahedron is thoroughly triangular in three-dimensional space. So it's the elevation of the point of being to supervise, as it were, to look from above upon the first three aspects of divinity. So, you know, the Tibetan, I think, is a third ray monad with a second ray soul, but as we've tried to talk about at the University of the Seven Rays conference, we talked about two monadic rays, and one day we'll get into that, you know, one for the monadic plane, one for the logoic plane. And it's very hard to know what's going on the logoic plane, but it's pretty clear that, like the Buddha, the Tibetan and the Buddha have something in common, and the Buddha is given that third ray monad. So for the Tibetan, with what I presume to be a third ray monad, the science of triangles is very, as he says, dear to his heart, and it must go on. Of course, those are occult statements. What does he mean by very close to my heart, dear to my heart? What does that really mean? It's not a sentimental statement. And it must go on. All right, good. And Tuya, if you'd be so kind as to kind of prepare for a excuse me, a closing meditation when we get to that point. Okay.
Michael, I'm sorry, because here is a little conflict. I have to be now on chart on a card. So can you do that?
Yeah, take care of it. We have some Blue Rose sisters coming here, and Shiva brothers, and we're having our yearly get together, and at the Sirius Festival. So things are pretty intense in terms of preparation. Okay, very good. Vera, you have something you would like to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, Michael, in Esoteric Psychology 1, page 187, there is a reference to a great federation of nations, a federation that now exists out on the inner side. And now it's absolutely fascinating. So how that federation of nations on the inner fits with the ashrams on the Buddhic plane.
Well, I think we're going to have to go step by step on that one, because, you know, the what we've been emphasizing lately, let's see if I can get there. Why Esoteric Psychology 1, and it's 187. I'm not exactly sure what federation he means, but we're told that there is a connection between the United States, the UK, England, or UK is more than England, and Russia, which hold the future of humanity in its hands. But basically, in the year 1925, the ashrams became what I would say federated. In other words, many moved to the Buddhic plane, and a closer relationship between these ashrams was established, whereas before they had been quite isolated in their working. And that establishment of closer relations was the higher correspondence of the emergence of the new group of world servers. And so I think that from the Ray angle, the nations themselves can have been related in a new way according to their soul rays, their personality rays, and we just have to take it on a step-by-step basis. I've never done that entirely, but we know, and we're going to get into it in this particular section of 100 pages, that each nation has its own soul ray and personality ray. And the fascinating thing about it, to me anyway, is that not one soul ray of the rays given is the third ray, not one. Okay, so obviously we're supposed to be moving beyond that. There are many third ray personalities and, you know, Capricorn personalities, but only one nation, and it happens to be Finland, that has the Capricorn soul. So if we check very carefully about the lines of connection which can exist between nations because of their rays, we might get into the sort of laws of the federation. Let's just say it's a hierarchical move involving probably the, what do you call it, the great deva of each nation and the rays of the federated nations. And you can, you know, for instance, Russia has a Aquarius soul. America has an Aquarius soul, and Holland has an Aquarius soul. Maybe there are others, I don't know. But based upon that triangle, we can say that some kind of flow of energy is existing there. Now, between Spain and Italy, and I'm not sure where else we could go on this, between Spain and Italy, there is a sixth ray soul in both cases. Now, if we look for another, you know, and they were both very, very militant when it had to do with belief in the church and all that kind of thing, and many excesses occurred there as a result. But if we look for another nation with that sixth ray soul, we may find an interesting connection, which is federation, which is getting together for a certain type of exchange. So now, you know, take a look at China and India. They are fighting it out right now for dominance. These are huge first ray nations on the soul level. Is there another, to complete a triangle, another first ray nation somewhere on the soul level that will link with them? Now, right now, the battle is on between India and China, and they have different personality rays, and that's all very obvious. But eventually, they're going to be very closely related because of an identity of that first ray soul. So what do we have to do? And actually, long ago in Canada, Tuya and I went there, and there was a conference held by Eva Smith and her sister and others, you know, a very good conference, I think. And I think I went through as much as I could of the relationships between the countries. And we will find triangular relationships and basis of commonality and basis for cooperation and federation. We'll find that if we examine very closely. But you've given me kind of an idea about that, and maybe I can pursue it. It'll be done on the basis of astrological soul rays and astrological soul signs. There's a lot of connection also between personalities, but they are of a lower order. You know, and you can tell I think there's 5 nations that have the Capricorn personality, and they all have their problems at this time when Pluto is in Capricorn. We're looking for the soul connections. And I don't know what there's going to be, you know, like France has a 5th ray soul, but Austria has a 5th ray personality. So we can actually extend it in somewhat other ways, because what he said was that people whose soul ray is X, Y, or Z are teaching people whose personality rays are X, Y, or Z. So maybe there's a relationship of learning something when the personality ray of various nations relates to the soul ray of the nations which stand in the role of teacher. So it's a very fruitful area, and it's all part of the 1925 conclave and the movement to the Buddhic plane and the closer association of the ashrams. And we'll have to look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. I don't know if I answered your question, but anyway, these things are inner relationships, and they're getting stronger all the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's complex. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, thank you, Vera. Okay, other thoughts, friends? Other thoughts, questions? Now, like I say, we had some area we studied, but the whole field of occultism, spiritual occultism, is open to you if you want to discuss it at this time, because everything leads to everything else, and everything is related to everything else and reciprocally. So there's nothing irrelevant. Everything can be tied in, nothing irrelevant. So any thoughts or things you would want to discuss, either from the text that we've been dealing with, or simply in the field of occultism. And, you'd be welcome if you wish. I'm trying to, find you here, if I can find you here. But you got to be brave, venture in. But none of us knows anything, the old joke that the further I go, the less I know. And at the end of the trail, I'm going to know nothing about everything. But that's all right, because nothing is a very wonderful concept, and it just means no thing. And it means the absolute homogeneous matrix out of which all things, regardless of their variety and their quality, emerge. So the great no thing is something, but we don't dare call it something. We don't dare predicate boundaries to it. It's absolutely the mother of absolute infinity. So nothing isn't a bad thing. There's two kinds of nothings, and I prefer the no thing to the nothing. Okay, that's a little diversion. Anything that you want to think about, talk about in the area of occultism? That's a big challenge. We all have questions in our minds, don't we? And everything is related to everything else. We can always find a way to relate whatever we're thinking about to the subject at hand. That's the amazing thing. I call it spherical study. I say Master DK has written for us one big book, and it's all a great sphere of knowledge, and the more interconnections there are, the more illumination there is. And what I've said before, we get the basis, we get the book. But if you start putting together via Mercury all the associations, as you move to the top of the pyramid, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter until at the capstone of the universal pyramid, it's incredibly intense light. We little human beings, we couldn't stand it whatsoever. But in other words, his books are written on one level, start working with them, and the light will increase. So the books keep on being augmented in their revelatory power, depending on what we do with the foundational language. Okay. Anything? Carrie, hold on. Is July 27th, or is it not August? You are correct. It's my hope. You're right. My hope is to be able to do this every week, but frankly, it's not possible. At least not yet. And you're correct, and thank you for that correction. Okay, so Yes, August. I mean, there's so much here, you know, and I know you say, well, look, I want to deal with the science of triangles, but immediately you are wading into cosmology and astrology and the lives of great beings who are related to each other in various ways, including triangular relationships. So it's just very mind expanding as we deal with this kind of thing. And just be patient, because one day every one of us will be totally omniscient with respect to what can be known in our present universe. It all starts with our planet and solar system, and on it goes until we know all that can be known within the universal sphere. And that's just a drop in the bucket. That's just an infinitesimal when we deal with absolute infinity. But anyway, it's big enough. So, you know, if you're in one of those people, like I have been, intent on accumulating knowledge, it's all nothing really. All this knowledge is useful, but there is no accumulation because everything is an infinitesimal in comparison with the absolute infinitude. So what I'm trying to tell myself, and maybe I can tell you, try to accumulate the knowledge which will be useful to you, either in direct application to better your own life and the life of others, or what will enlarge your understanding of things. But all knowledge is, even of the solar system, is not useful to us right now. If I want to know what are the mineral deposits on Pluto, for instance, I want to know the laws of chemistry on Pluto, it might be very interesting, but it's more interesting to Plutonians than it is to me because they can do something with it. So eventually, as we begin to climb the ladder via increasing points of tension, more and more recondite knowledge will be useful to us, but we have to discriminate. Otherwise, we just accumulate, and you know, what are you going to do with it? The old saying, even a donkey can carry a library on his back, and that, you know, that I just found myself to be that donkey, and I just said, wait a second, what am I doing? You know, it's got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant. So we do our best. Okay. Thank you, Gary, for that. Okay, other things you want to say? Don't be worried about, you know, that something's not relevant, because my statement is that everything that you might say about our planet and about our local sphere and about your own life of developing spiritual occultism can be seen as relevant. If you want to talk about things beyond the one about whom naught may be said, well, maybe we're going to have to wait for a while. Okay? All right. Are any of you having that, what have I gotten myself into feeling? I have it all the time. I said, my goodness, what is Master DK doing here? And Alice Bailey, she said, as she was writing, I may have mentioned before, things that never got into the books, huge vistas of possibilities appeared before her understanding. And it was just somehow latent in the whole thing that the Tibetan was doing. She couldn't write it down. It wasn't what he wanted written down, but all kinds of extensions of consciousness were coming to her. And maybe that can be the case for us as we study more carefully. So, meditation, study, and service. And part of our service is teaching people how to use the abstract mind and building, therefore, the very first stage of the Antikarana. That's the key. Then we can get into other parts of it as we ascend towards the monad and rediscover who we really are. All right,
I have a question.
That's it.
Uh,
Okay, yeah, go ahead,
it
Joe,
occurred to me
please.
when you were going through the 5 signs, races, and the continents that the 5 inlets do not seem to align with that particular. And I wondered if you could
Right.
speak to that. Is it
Yeah.
because they're the current inlets? What might be the explanation for that lack of alignment to the other?
Mm. Well, of course, the 5 are now in the Aryan race, those centers. And these other 5 we're looking at are spread out over time. And what are we presently? We are 5th root race types, and we are on our way to a kind of a increasing initiatory standing. So sometimes, like I say, I feel that Capricorn, especially once we get into the age of Capricorn, the Capricorn is hovering over this whole thing. Those, we got New York, London, Geneva, Darjeeling, Tokyo. All of that is now. There are 5 planetary inlets. Will they persist? Will these cities exist in the future? We don't know. But it's all part of the Aryan elevation of consciousness. How much longer will the Aryan race last? Well, I don't know that. I think the Aryan race is one of the 5th root race is one of the shortest, really. And there's some references that say the 6th root race of 10 million years is going to be beginning very soon. And then maybe we're going to have even other signs of the zodiac associated with South America and the rising of Pacifica, if we can call it that. But when I look at those 5, it's a 5-pointed star. Capricorn, to me, offers Aryan initiation. Like the 5th ray, he says, is the initiator. He gives a special prominence to the 5th ray. Venus is the hierarchical ruler of Capricorn, and there's even one place where it seems to say that Venus is actually coming through the constellation, no, that the 5th ray is coming through the constellation of Capricorn. I don't think we're anywhere near some kind of Piscean release, and I don't know, haven't really thought about it, what signs of the zodiac will correspond to the emergence of different continents now. So I say man is now entering the 5th kingdom of nature. Man is now being initiated, Capricorn. Venus is becoming more and more powerful. That's why I said I wondered if Capricorn, if we shouldn't switch those around a little bit, and whether he gave them in absolute order with respect to the centers. So I look at all 5 of the present centers as a 5-pointed star, related to initiation, related to the 5th ray, related to the illuminated intelligence of mankind in the Aryan race. And I say, in a way, they're all under Capricorn, the star of initiation shining forth. Now, when we get into the next root race, the 6-pointed star is going to appear. And the 6-pointed star is the monad. Very interesting because, Master Morya as Akbar, the great ruler of India, he had that 6-pointed star everywhere. He wasn't looking at that as a Hebraic star. It had a much greater sense of it. And even the 7-pointed star is referenced in the Tibetan's work. So I think we're in the period of the 5-pointed star. I think Capricorn's relationship to the first 5 initiations is riding over this whole thing. And then we make transition. So, I don't look for, in other words, I'll just say it, I don't look for a one-to-one correspondence between the 5 planetary centers and these 5 zodiacal signs. As a matter of fact, some of the centers are not even in the continents that are given. There's none in Australia. There's none in Africa, you know. So I don't look for the correspondence there exactly. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Then that there would be 6 inlets associated with the 6th root race and the 6th pointed star.
Yeah, and then 7.
Yeah.
And 7. And who knows how the inlets might or might not change. See, you know, maybe these cities or something that rises up on the talismanic level for each of these areas will persist. You know, but we've had great cities before that have just disappeared and something else is built on it. Will New York last forever? Will Geneva last forever? What's going to happen in the 6th root race? What will the inlets be then? Or will they be in the same areas? We don't know yet. But there's a difference between the continents as glands and these particular cities, which are the inlets now, and the root races over time. So we have to be careful how we compare these things. If we look for a one-to-one correspondence, there may not be at this point. That's how I'm answering it for myself at the moment.
Michael, I just wanted to add there that these planetary centers, they are not even equal activity. It says that Darjeeling and Tokyo, they are still in latent states. So it's only the triangle of that 5-pointed star of humanity, which is active. So meaning the New York, London, and Geneva. And that makes me think that is triangle. And that makes me think also that does that corresponds the states of humanity in that sense that because we are still working like the program of earlier solar system, and then when we are masters, we have only first time reached the point where we should be already on Earth. And
number five, finally.
Number 5, yes. So thinking about that, is that also for us, what would be then this correspondence of New York, London, and Geneva? Is that Geneva the heart, London the head, and solar plexus is the New York,
or the throat, if we want to keep it to the higher centers. Yeah. I mean, if we make it a triangle, exactly. I think that's correct. And remember how very occult Darjeeling is. He says it's a first ray center in a way, but its rays are ray as a city. Its rays are ray 2 and ray 5. And remember that out of India came the beginning of the 5th root race, which is the Hindu, the one of one. So it's really connected with the number 5. Now, when it comes to Tokyo, it's hard to say. Tokyo has the exact reverse rays of Japan. Japan has a 4th ray soul and a 6th ray personality. Tokyo has a 6th ray soul and a 4th ray personality. So, you know, they're exactly reversed. But remember when I talked about soul nature, there's going to be a link somehow between Italy, Spain with their 6th ray souls, and Tokyo with its 6th ray soul. You see, and if you want to get into the recent war, a bunch of countries in the Axis group had the 4th ray very prominent. So, you know, you can look for these, what can we call it? Lines of numerical affinity. Lines of numerical affinity, and unsuspected relationships will be revealed. But we have to examine very carefully time, the race you're dealing with, and the function, the ray function of the different things that you would correlate. There's a lot of correlating work to be done here.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Right, and I'm thinking what DK says is that humanity has to work towards this awakening these centers, and I'm just again looking at what has happened in Tokyo a few years ago go when Uranus went to Aries. There was this atomic influence, and then now the flooding, which is again hitting Hiroshima. There are 5 other places in Japan, which is also interesting that the number 5, the flooding in number 5 crater areas, but then again Hiroshima. So Hiroshima seems to me that it is somehow related to this activation of the planetary center of Tokyo. And then I'm thinking about Darjeeling. How many things are now happening under the influence of Darjeeling area. So it looks like
that's Moria's town. You know, Darjeeling is considered to be the place for Master Moria. You know, so it's going to be very strong, first-rate planetary center. But now take a look. Look at Rio de Janeiro, okay? For the 6th root race, and there is the Christ on top of the mountain. I think that we can already see what the great planetary inlet will be for the 6th root race and Brazil. But as far as the 7th root race goes, probably the continent has not even risen yet from the Pacific Ocean. So these are long drawn out issues. And whether the same,
Michael, I just wanted to add, when you mentioned the Brazil and the statue of Redeemer, that there is a huge international program where is coming the world largest Maitreya Buddha statue, and it is involving people from all around the world to build this statue. So and that is under Darjeeling. So there, I am just looking these things as the activations of these centers.
Yeah, of the various centers. Yeah, exactly. And and just the way in a human being, it takes a long time before certain of the higher centers are really activated. Millions of years, really. So we cannot look for things to happen in a snap with respect to the 6th root race and the 7th root race, which may be even longer than the 10 million year 6th root race. So, you know, we have to be very patient about this. It's a good question about correlation, but the deeper you get into it, you examine the astrology, you examine the rays, you examine the function, you examine the position in time of any one of these factors, because that is a factor. Now, right now, all the planetary centers are more or less existing at the same time, but not at the same stage of development. And only time will tell whether these particular inlets will survive under other names, or whether there's some kind of talisman planted where they are and they will continue in that way, or whether they will not. I think already in Rio, you can see the signs of the inlet for the 6th root race. I think so. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Okay, now I think we're pretty much at that point where we shouldn't linger more. And okay, so Tuya, are you going to be sort of out and about doing those things, or do you want me to handle it?
Yes, I have to be ready if something happens here. So if you could lead the meditation.
Yeah. Okay, very good. All righty, friends. Deep subjects, expanding the mind, and not just the concrete mind, okay? Not just the concrete mind, but the mind that can be built through the building of the Antakarana. This is what we're dealing with. These are real internal occult factors. They take a while, but the methods have been given to us by an extremely reliable teacher. So it's up to us whether we want to take advantage of what Master DK has given. It would be maybe the most important thing we ever did in our life, to really fasten on to the teaching, learn all about it as deeply as possible, and then apply it for the elevation and the increasing of the point of tension of all life forms we come in contact with according to the divine plan. Okay, so anyway, you know how we do. Our little meditation here is not lengthy, and it's just basically, matter of fact, I think the thing for me to do is to, this this will be the chart because it really gives the picture of many triangles lying behind what we consider to be our average estimation of what triangles are. I mean, it just, there it is, okay? And by the way, the monadic plane has circles, as it does, I think, also when we consider our own area. Page 39 of the Letters on Occult Meditation talks about all the different groups, and I look at those as inclusive Jupiterian circles sounding the sound O, not even Om, but the sound O on the monadic plane. Right. So again, we come together as a group in each other's presence. And a number of us, you know, we may have triangles among ourselves here, even in this group. And we imagine that, as DK says, look at the inverted triangle, colored light orange. The bottom of that triangle touches the head center. And if we go to the mental plane, we'll find there the presence of Master DK and the solar angel, or the influence of the solar angel. So let's just dwell on that image, that light orange color pouring down, in which we bathe as if we would bathe in the waters of the sea, touching our head center, going down all the way through our etheric system. And with the influence of Master DK there and the projection of the solar angel onto the, I suppose, even higher mental plane, really. And think of the little group of people with whom you work in triangular formation, even if it's only one triangle. Everybody should have at least one triangle, or maybe many more. And think of the light and the goodwill flowing through your own little network of triangles. And one day, even the will to good will flow through that little network in which you individually are involved. And all over the world is this greater network which is gradually forming. and must indeed form. It's a work that must go on, he tells us. And there is love flowing through it, there is goodwill, there is light, and it underlies all kinds of outer events. But behind all this, empowering it, is Shambhala, the three Buddhas of activity, and ultimately Sanat Kumara, and greater triangles between our planetary logos and the logos of Mercury, the logos of Venus, let's say. Those are there. All kinds of triangles in our solar system and beyond. The gathering of different solar systems. Maybe there's a triangle between our solar logos, the solar logos of Sirius, and maybe the solar logos of Procyon, the lesser dog, and Sirius being the heart of the greater dog. So triangles between solar logoi and beyond. Triangles between these chakras of the great being. Let us say Great Bear, Little Bear, and the major seven Pleiades. And that's a stupendous triangle, and we'd almost have to stop there. I mean, obviously, way beyond our ken are these triangles between parts of the galaxy and between galaxies and family. You know, it just goes on till we come to the Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma of the entire universe. But all these great triangles are helping to build up our own etheric body here on this planet into a system of triangles which will carry the energy of consciousness and of the soul and of the higher possibilities. So let's just get the idea that we're in a vast, vast system within the etheric body of the universe, which is gradually being transformed into a system of triangles and eventually a system of circles, interlocked circles, such as presently the etheric body of the sun is said to be. And we're part of all this, and we're working subjectively to spread these energies to redeem life on our globe, in our chain, on our planet, to redeem through triangles. And we'll sound the Om, and then the great invocation. Now, a great invocation. And you know, if you're home alone or whatever, you can say it out loud or internally, however you would like to. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. Make return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everybody. If you have the stamina tonight at 5 p.m. GMT, we will have our continuing dissipation of glamour initiative webinar. And I'm afraid to say that the glamour has not significantly decreased this week, though there is a lot of pointed questioning to get at truth, and wherever truth exists, glamour cannot. So if you want to join us, it'll be a webinar again, and I think you have the, Joe, do we have the link for that one?
The link is different. It's not. I don't have it right now. I can post it up again on Constant
Wait a second.
Contact.
I think I can do this. I think I can do it. Hold on.
The registration link.
Yeah, maybe I can. Yeah, I mean, I think you all have it, but in case for some reason you don't, here.
And while we're on that subject, I'll just mention that we've discovered that people are not getting their go-to-webinar reminders, even if they are registered, because of server issues. I think.
Yeah.
And so if you have that problem, just let me know and I will send you your individual link. So you
Okay, very good, very good. Now here is this, I think can they copy it out of the chat box?
Yes.
There it is. Okay, that's the one for tonight. I believe, I hope I'm correct. I hope I'm correct. So that's the URL for the dissipation of glamour. And boy, we really have to work on that now, don't we? Because the whole question about truth is so much emerging, and wherever there is lying and obfuscation and dissimulation and all that, you're not going to have democracy. You're not going to have rulership by the people. You're going to have the disenfranchisement of the people. So hopefully we can make some inroads into that, and just copy that out of your chat box if you don't have it, and join us tonight, 5 p.m. GMT. And then, as I say, we're working very hard to deliver to you a high quality of broadcast. Now, things happen along the way, and servers change, and they change their policies, and they change their bandwidths and all kinds of things. So we're trying to stay on top of that. And if you get cutting going on in your music when we do a broadcast, or even during speech, just meditate. It'll probably come back, and we hope to solve the problem. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And we'll be seeing you, in some hours for the dissipation of glamour. Okay. Take care. Lots of love to everybody, and see you soon. Bye-bye.